Let's turn back to the 2024 campaign now. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu has announced that he will not be making a run for the White House.
So we've taken the last 6 months to really kind of look at things, where everything is, and I've made the decision not to run for president on the Republican ticket in 2024. And obviously, a lot goes into that decision, but it's been quite an adventure, but not the end of the adventure by any means.
Governor Sununu went on to explain his decision in an op-ed for the Washington Post titled, "I'm not running for president in 2024. Beating Trump is more important." The governor writes in part this: "Our party is on a collision course toward electoral irrelevance without significant corrective action. Current polls indicate Trump is the leading Republican candidate in 2024. He did not deliver on his promises to drain the swamp, secure the border, and instill fiscal responsibility while in office, and added $8 trillion to our national debt. Yet now he wants 4 more years. If he is the nominee, Republicans will lose again, just as we did in 2018, 2020, and 2022. Over the next few months, I will travel the country to bring on new voters, inspire the next generation, and help grow our party. The stakes are too high for any of us to just sit on the sidelines." Joining us now, national politics correspondent for Politico, Adam Wren. Adam, good to see you. So Governor Sununu is out, but the field has gotten pretty crowded. As we mentioned earlier in the show, former Vice President Mike Pence officially filed his paperwork yesterday. His campaign launch will be tomorrow. And this, of course, sets up a showdown with his former boss, Donald Trump. Give us the Pence rationale. What's his lane, and how's he going to take on the former president?
Good to be with you, John. Yeah, the Pence folks see his lane as being the happy warrior in the race. Right now, the front runners in the race are painting a pretty dark vision of the country. People are coming after your families. The world is an unsafe place. And Pence really believes he can paint a brighter future for the GOP. He's going to announce in Iowa, of course, and his campaign sees evangelical, voter-rich Iowa as a place where he can really launch his campaign and connect with voters. He's been there a lot already over the last 2 years. He's said he's going to visit all 99 counties. And, then he's going to head to New Hampshire, where he faces kind of a tougher path as a social conservative who advances, a national ban on abortion. He's going to face a difficult path there. But in Iowa, he thinks he can really launch his campaign.
It should note that Pence was the only would-be candidate who actually hopped on the motorcycle in that Joni Ernst ride event from the other day. How, though, is he going to take on Donald Trump, who, of course, he served so faithfully up until the very end, only breaking with him on January 6th?
John, he said that he's going to highlight the positive accomplishments of the Trump-Pence administration. He has dropped the Trump at times and talked about what he did as vice president. But I think it's really a matter of, essentially calling out Trump by name on January 6th. His campaign team believes that Trump faces some pretty difficult sledding when it comes to his legal problems, and that could play a role in the race as things shake out. But at other times, Pence has been reluctant to take on Trump by name, calling him his former competitor. He's focused on issues like, reforming Social Security, cutting back spending on Social Security, and has called out his former running mate on issues of federal spending. So we know that that's an issue where they disagree on. Also, of course, Ukraine. When it comes to Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, Pence has really said that Ron DeSantis is not a traditional economic conservative, going too far in his battle with Disney. And so Pence has said that he likes Walt Disney, not woke Disney. So this is a former talk radio show host who's pretty good with a one-liner, and I expect that to be part of his campaign.
So, Adam, give us a sense of former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, not really focusing on Iowa. His attention is on New Hampshire. That's where he tonight is going to announce his bid. What is his path here outside of perhaps, as some in the party have suggested, that he almost just exists as a flamethrower to try to take down other candidates? He did it to Marco Rubio in 2016, maybe Trump this time around.
Yeah, it remains to be seen what his path is outside of New Hampshire. He is sort of custom built for New Hampshire, governor not far from a state away. But he really is sort of the attack dog in this race, someone who can specifically litigate against Trump. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him take on Pence as well and call out Pence for being what he might call him a hypocrite for enabling Trump all these years. Of course, Pence famously took over the transition operation in 2016 from Chris Christie, who was running it until Pence was picked vice president. So we could see some harsh words for Pence from Christie as well. But yeah, Christie really relishes being the attack dog and, is really kind of focused on litigating the case specifically against Trump in a way no other competitor seems to be comfortable with at this point in the race.
We should also have note, of course, that Christie himself was very supportive of Trump up until about January 6th, even being part of his debate prep team. National politics correspondent for Politico, Adam Wren. Great stuff this morning. Thank you for joining us.